data, and we came up with the report that hopefully you've had a chance to download and digest. If you haven't, I'm sure there'll be plenty of opportunities for us to highlight where you can do that. The total report is 50 pages in length, and you'll be pleased to know that we're not going to go through every single one of those today. But what we have done is chosen some highlights that we feel are most relevant to the Japan market and to you, our customers. So I'll move into the business priorities. And on this next slide, here's what you'll see that the top priorities for business leaders across Asia Pacific. The first one mentioned there is the focus on health and safety of employees. Now, on this subject, actually, Japan was slightly different to most other locations in the region, in that here in Japan, it was actually nominated as the top priority for employers. Whereas for most other countries, the second item on the list was prioritized, which is that driving of employee engagement and motivation. I understand that obviously that's been quite a bit tougher with the backdrop of the pandemic, especially given that we haven't been able to be together as much. Lots of interactions are happening via phone and video, and it's generally been harder to remain connected. And the other thing that I've actually felt is that it's also actually harder to observe engagement and motivation. So being able to find strategies to be able to really impact in that area has been more challenging, and hence a lot of focus has been put on that. I is going to talk through some more on engagement and motivation in her section later in this webinar. And then finally, and perhaps an obvious one, business leaders have been focused on reviving revenue generation. Now, there certainly has been a number of businesses that have actually surged on the back of the pandemic and the market conditions that it's created for them. But it's fair to say that the majority of companies that we are dealing with experience adverse impacts ranging from quite minor to severe. And so as a result, lots of attention is obviously back on returning to previous levels of revenue generation. And not just looking at the old tried and tested ways of doing that, certainly more innovation has been introduced into that process as well. The next topic of keen interest across not just Japan and APAC, this is actually across the entire world, is this concept around remote and flexible working. And as part of our assessment, we found that 80% of the companies that we were talking to across APAC have not only made changes to their approach on flexible work policies, but have actually made lasting changes. So that they've seen some of the impact that has happened and some of the benefits that have been got from having a flexible workforce, and have actually put those in place moving forward now. The trends regarding remote work in Japan, though, well, whilst they're probably changing day by day, but and recent surveys independent of our own indicate that I think it's up to 70% of workers in Tokyo have experienced some level of remote work, or as they say in Japan, the teleworking, which I always thought was a strange term. But anyway, 70% of people have experienced remote work. Now, whilst there's that many of them who have actually experienced some level of it, the actual percentage of people doing it regularly, both anecdotally and from some of the things that we're reading, it's actually far less percentage doing it regularly. So compared to other developed countries, Japan is a little bit behind the curve when it comes to the adoption of remote work. Now, there are a number of factors in play on that, but likely because of the Japan business culture and the very strong emphasis on face-to-face interactions, but also due to the fact that the state of emergencies that we've experienced here have been relatively less severe than the complete lockdowns that countries have experienced elsewhere. Here, remote working has been encouraged and very politely encouraged by our government, but not actually mandated. And so therefore the adoption has been a little bit lower here than in other places. Now, as you can see on the slide, our insights show that most employees actually prefer some remote work, and actually 4 out of 5 employees feel they are more or equally productive at home. I have to say personally, when we started to employ a work from home strategy, one of my biggest concerns was that going to diminish our productivity? And I'm very pleased to see that it didn't, and that certainly gave me a lot more confidence about how we employ that moving forward. What is also interesting is that the vast majority of people aren't actually looking for a complete work from home solution. In fact, I think it was only 5% that indicated they'd prefer to have a full work from home scenario. But as you can see, 87% would like a blended view on this. So that's some time in the office with colleagues, some flexibility to work elsewhere. And the things that were important about making those assessments were the focus on social interaction and the mental well-being, obviously being key contributors to people's decision-making on that front. Personally, again, I think here the key is about providing some choice. It's not about completely changing or throwing out the work patterns or styles that you've adopted, but you're giving people an opportunity to do things a little bit differently. And that's certainly the approach that we've adopted here at Page Group. The office environment and the interactions that we have here with each other and with our customers, I mean, they're such a critical part of our culture and something that we're definitely going to be working hard to maintain and protect. However, we wanted to provide some choice on things like start and finish times, the opportunity to work some days from home, and a few other factors that we're rolling out as well. So that's probably the main thing I've got out of this, out of these insights. Now, assessing performance became pretty challenging. I mean, with businesses worldwide really going through, you'd have to say, unprecedented disruption to operations, especially with employees having to adapt to vastly different working arrangements away from the office. And like, I think we all also just generally had to deal with both the economic and social impacts that this pandemic presented. So figuring out how to actually assess performance became a little bit tricky. Across the region, over half of all organizations that we spoke to put in place new or adjusted metrics to measure performance of individuals across their business. Some of the long-established plans and processes and ways to measure performance had to be thrown out as the pre-COVID expectations became, in a number of instances, unrealistic and also potentially demoralizing for staff. The other shift that we observed was actually in the skills and behaviors that were being sought after in both staff that were existing in an organization and also when they were coming out to hire new people. And as you can see highlighted on the slide, companies were placing a very high emphasis on attributes including collaboration, resilience, agility, and initiative. They were the top ones being sought after.